all right? So you have to feed it a lot like a baby to be able to.
I like that. That's a great analogy. Feeding it like a baby, and is, you know, that's today's SOC, I suppose. And we will look at proactivity. What about you, Stefan Hager?
Yeah, firstly, sorry about my video. My camera just decides to die 5 seconds after I plug it in. For me, threat intelligence at the moment is a difficult topic because I've got 2 hearts beating in my breast. I would like to have everything in regards to information, but as we all know, having everything also means you got a lot of garbage, basically, that is not really something that will hit your company. So it's still a rather difficult topic to carefully find the threat intelligence feeds that you really need. And I'm much more looking at risk intelligence nowadays to see what could become a threat in the future.
I like that. So that move from threat intel to risk intel, and I think Mike Godecker was talking a little bit about that. You know, that risk intel piece. Well, why don't I then go back to you, Stefan Deutscher, and I say, well, is this threat intelligence really about becoming active and proactive rather than passive?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there's 2 aspects to it. First, I think threat intel and SOCs really are currently almost like a band-aid on broken fundamentals. So basically, they're trying to fix after the fact things that haven't been addressed at the root cause. So hopefully going forward, that might go away. Realistically, it's a band-aid we need because the patient is bleeding, right? Now, in terms of actively going after things, I think the active part in a SOC should be that operations, or that should be this sort of, you know, the third part of gather information, then digest it, and then act on it. And this is where most SOCs that I have seen fall flat on their face. This is what happened to Target. They had way back when they had the information and failed to act on it. So I think this is how far active should go. Now, I know that there's some thinking also about hackback or active defense in the sense of sort of going out and getting after the attackers. But in our work with the World Economic Forum, we looked at that topic and pretty soon came to the recommendation to stay away from that as far as you can, because attribution is difficult, and you might think you hit the right person and you hit the nation state that can hit you back with something that you didn't expect. So active defense is something to be taken with many grains of salt.
Okay, I like that, and that will definitely link because we're doing a whole panel on active threat hunting and that gray area and the possibility of aggravating the wasp's nest. What about you, Stefan Eigler? When we're talking about threat intel for tomorrow's SOC, what about all this virtual working lately, and especially your logical presence? Are we all in need of a fusion center, or are we all in need of being a fusion center?
Yeah, somehow. I think it's definitely on the plate, and the virtual environment or usage of virtual environments is increasing. Yeah, so I like what Stefan Deutscher said with the hackback scenarios. Yeah, so if you think what would be an appropriate answer to a certain attack and how to learn from it and how to prevent it in the future, I think we are also a little bit. It's also required a little bit that our governments give us more options in the light of the legal framework. Yeah, so it's not that easy to start a fight back, for example, if you are living in an EU country. Yeah, so the step into jail is very close, yeah, because you violate given rights, and yeah, your company could be affected negatively somehow. So what is the extent to which you can react, and how can you react adequately? I think this is something that we have to take into account, and especially, yeah, you're totally right, Philip, when we assess the increasing virtual factor of our working environments, yeah, like we have home offices and so on and so forth. We also have vulnerabilities that are becoming added, yeah, additional vulnerabilities that are much more simpler, for example, yeah. So if you have a shared environment, yeah, you have a home network that you share with your wife who's working virtually, maybe with your children who are doing virtual education, then you have more open doors, or doors to be opened, yeah, that you have to save somehow. And I think this adds more responsibility to the one who's sitting in front of the PC, yeah, and this is us as employees. And I think also traditional measures like policies, yeah, like simple measures that you can apply by yourself are also becoming more important than in the past, because we have this shift towards the home environment and additional legacy vulnerabilities, so to speak. But another point I would like to add, we had an interesting topic. You were asking what might the future SOC look like, and I think, as I mentioned, the skills, yeah, need to be more broadened than before, and also there's some kind of trend agent. Yeah, a SOC employee of tomorrow also needs to identify what could be trending somehow. We had a customer case recently where a huge German customer in China was obliged to install a tax tool, yeah, from the Chinese tax authority, and the SOC found out it came with a Trojan. So an unofficial Trojan, so to speak. Yeah, it was easy to identify, but you cannot delete it, and you cannot go back to the government and say, please provide me another piece of software. This has a Trojan. So you have to live with that. And I think this is also something which indicates a trend. Yeah, there is a certain official software handed out that has a backdoor or a Trojan implemented. So you have to think about what could be an adequate treatment of that and of that scenario. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. And embedded hardware and OT, you know, it is a bit of a pickle. And you know, Mike was just talking earlier about critical infrastructure, and we had transport links from Siemens Energy, also on the OT side. That was a trigger one. And what about you, Chucks? Because Gibal and Clearly, I suppose in your role, you're also responsible for OT. And if that's really the case, Chucks, what are we going to do about threat intel for the SOC of the future? How are we going to pull that together? Are you a fusion center yourself? What are we going to do?
Well, it's like trying to philosophize, isn't it? Because the future is always emerging and nobody is in control of it, right? So, and what I try to understand, you know, when you talk about intelligence, so you have to first of all understand the adversaries, all right? And what is their capability, and what do you have to protect yourself against them? So maybe philosophizing into the future, you understand that the adversaries are very capable. They are highly collaborative, all right? They are unruly. They are not regulated. But the business, on the other part, is highly limited, not very, very collaborative, and highly regulated, all right? So we are operating from a very weak point, so to say. The adversaries knows everything that we want to do to protect ourselves, but we don't know everything they are doing to attack us. So now we're looking at how do we protect ourselves, right? And you understand that with COVID-19 and home office and everybody working from home office, a lot of digital information being shared across. And also looking at the scenario from the hacker's adversary perspective, you find out that it has become so lucrative, all right? Very enticing. A skilled person would rather be on the adversary side than at the defensive side, all right? Because that is where the bulk of the money comes from. So they are now bold enough to offer attack information, attack devices, and attack tools as a service, all right? So now having all these tools and all these advantages, okay, over their target, what can we do? And that is what the SOC of the future is going to be looking like, all right? So now you find out that, all right, Mike rightly alluded that cybersecurity also is a process, all right, it's a business process. So we now have to start looking at those business processes before the data are generated, all right? It is very easy these days now for an adversary to implant a hacker into the system through the recruitment processes, all right? Already you have hired an insider, a hacker who has come to hack you, and you are paying him, all right, without knowing. Okay, so the recruitment process is what of the process of gathering intelligence about who wants to be employed. Because at times these days, it is always the SOC is disconnected from these whole processes that bring the insider into the environment. All right, so, and the intelligence, the SOC is tuned to monitoring outsiders, what outsiders are doing when they have succeeded in planting an insider in your network, and you are even paying the person. So, which means that the SOC of the future should be looking at how to integrate itself into the business processes from the acquisition of different perspectives that make up the business into monitoring user behavior, and not just monitoring, but a surveillance, all right, which goes beyond monitoring, all right? So you are looking at it from that perspective, and you are having a threshold from the start, and you are able to understand how do you automate, because the data now is going to become very heavy. But if you look at it also this day, you find out that there is no attack that was not triggered by any of the security devices. But because the data is so much, you always overlook them, all right, until after many days, because you just feel that it's just one of those false positives. So we're looking at a SOC of the future that is more precise, more intelligent, more business oriented, meaning that it has to be proactive. So you have to go back to the business processes before the adversaries come in to actually prevent them from coming in or understanding or building a threshold.
No, I like that, and that places the SOC and security squarely at the acquisition phase. And I do other panels where we put security architects on stage, and we bemoan that no one asked the architect before they bought a new product. And maybe the same is true of the SOC. If the SOC's going to have to use it and integrate it, maybe they should be there to look for those insider threats. And in fact, Sarka, who's on the call, will be doing a very nice insider threat presentation a little later. And I'll tell you what then, Stefan Hager, well, in this question of how is threat intel going to be the core of the SOC of tomorrow, what about unknown unknowns? And if we are talking about unknown unknowns, are we talking about threat intel versus 0-day? Or am I getting my terminology mixed up, Stefan Hager?
Well, just to start with the terminology, I think nowadays everybody uses a lot of terms interchangeably. So as long as we know what we mean by 0-day, as I would use it as a threat that hasn't been seen before. So there's no threat intelligence to protect from that. And that can apply to a lot of threats, especially when you consider if you just change a tiny detail about the threat, about the attack, then it could be considered a 0-day, although it's pretty much the same as before. And we have to see whether the threat intelligence we get can protect from that. As to the unknown unknowns, that is, well, a difficult topic in itself, isn't it? Because, of course, you can have threat hunting going on and try to figure out anything that is an anomaly. You can have that with a combined effort by machine learning plus human intelligence. But the interesting thing is, interesting in well, depressing. Whenever you find something that is not really normal, there's a large chance that it's just something that is pretty normal. You just haven't seen it before. So to find unknown unknowns, I think it is very good to collaborate with others, not only with a threat sharing like MISP and other platforms, but to be in contact with other people within your same industry, maybe to talk about stuff that you think is unusual, to just really figure out whether it's unusual, whether it's an unknown unknown, or whether it's just white noise that you haven't seen before.
So how can we build a SOC of the future to try and identify that, Stefan Hager?
I think the SOC of the future that can try to identify that is not an island in itself. That was what I meant by threat sharing. It's a difficult topic again, because most companies don't like to share this information, at least in Germany. You can prove me wrong. That is my experience, because companies usually don't want to admit that maybe there's a threat targeting them, or maybe they have a certain weakness. But MISP as a platform allows you to share anonymously, for example, as well within your peer group. And without sharing that kind of information more broadly, I think we can't handle that, and we can't call it a SOC of the future.
Okay. Well, so that's interesting. Then Stefan Deutscher, didn't you and I maybe talk previously about SOC collaboration? And if SOC collaboration is in fact a possibility, isn't that the job of the CSIRT? And then aren't we into a bit of a tricky territory with threat intel?
Yeah, I mean and I think Stefan Hager alluded to that nicely already, that this collaboration and sharing is absolutely important, and of course that should also extend to people actively working in SOCs. There's a bit of a challenge in that there's very many communities right now where you could share threat intel, and that currently in many companies this type of activity isn't properly incentivized or planned for or rewarded. So basically the agents in the SOCs have to make a call. Am I spending more time on what I'm basically being tasked to do, or am I spending time on interacting outside where nobody sees the great thing I do for security at large? Nevertheless, SOC collaboration is important, and there's also Stefan mentioned it already. Information sharing in Germany is sometimes limited, and there's different formats, right? You can do public information sharing, you can do private by invitation, like the ISACAs. You can do also private that is not even known, so it's really just in closed circles. And sometimes, what we see is, again, in our work with the World Economic Forum, we're talking to many CISOs of large companies, and what we learned is that increasingly, in some countries, people go to the regulator to ask for permission to collaborate on security, because there's this antitrust consideration. Let's make this up. Imagine a couple of banks all of a sudden start to collaborate very closely, then obviously there would be concerns of antitrust authorities. But it seems that regulation in many jurisdictions is coming around to the observation that cyber, you shouldn't compete on cyber, you should collaborate on cyber. And so basically they're giving them almost like a voucher to say, yes, on cyber you can collaborate. So that's a bit the framing that's needed.
A bit of a hall pass. It sort of lets them do it. Of course, then and we'll get into insider threat later. Then now the insider threat landscape is a little different. And I guess then what about you, Stefan Eigler? I'd like to look at how we can make threat intel as a business enabler. Surely if anything is going to be a business enabler, threat intel, just as financial intel is a business enabler.
Yeah, definitely. On the one hand, you have to take into consideration that it could be a market entry gate somehow. Yeah. So if you take the China example, if you you're stepping into a market where you have to take specific security measures to ensure the security of your information assets. yeah, then this is something that maybe smaller companies are not able to afford. Yeah, and it could be a market entry gate. And I think what you are pointing to is, if you look from the other direction, yeah, it could also be a quality gate. Yeah, so if I have my processes are mature enough to identify at an early point in time, oh, the software that I get provided from the tax, from the governmental tax institution, that might be something that should be assessed in an isolated area before I implement it in my environment, in my IT architecture, then this is also something that sets a kind of quality gate. Yeah, you could apply the same process to other software that you are going to introduce. Yeah, that is not handed out by a government, that might be suspicious, but by a company where you are not really sure if it has a backdoor or not. And I think the process as a whole could help a lot to get more quality in it. And as I'm constantly promoting, yeah, get the lawyers on the table, yeah, get the IT legal guys on the table, because that could help a lot to get the board attention, the management attention, to get the sponsorship. Yeah, because as we all know, to develop a SOC in a progressive manner, it's cost intensive. Yeah, you need the right people, as we talked about. You need a broader skill set. Yeah, and this is a cost factor. You need the right people from the market, and yeah, therefore it could help to argue with the legal environment and the legal requirements, because then you are very close to the fines that might go alongside with that. Yeah, and then it's a topic of the enterprise risk. And this is something where you always will have attention, yeah, that you need. And additionally, what you said, when you can also bring a little bit more quality in it, yeah, you can enable some kind of quality gate and process quality ensurement, yeah, then it also helps.
Yeah, quality, that will prick up management's ears, hopefully. Chucks, in the audience, Jamie, and you did reply, but I thought we'll extrapolate it a little bit. Jamie asks, great point, Chucks, from your last point. Looking at the business processes before data is generated may hamper progress or even starting. How can this be integrated to be more facilitating? I thought, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? That'd be quite interesting, Chucks.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So we're trying as much as possible that security should not be a showstopper or a bottleneck to the business, right? So as much as we want to protect the company, so we should also be able to enable the business, just like the last question you asked, Ila. All right. So yeah, it is collaboration, internal collaboration with all stakeholders. All right. So defining, you are not building in retrogression. You are defining a threshold going forward, right? So because we're looking at what the future looks like, and you are trying to understand what the adversaries might do and how collaborative they are. So, and you want to bring in all stakeholders within the business to understand the role security plays in making sure that the business runs smoothly. And for us to do that, we don't want to be correcting mistakes of the past when we can prevent it from happening. So which means that during the definition of the requirement process, all right, you consider security as a fact, all right? Which means that when HRO wants to employ, security has an input in there on how HRO employs, who HRO employs, the time the person is resuming, and the onboarding process. The profiling of the person that is going to be employed based on the role of the person becomes very, very important, because at times you are employing somebody either is a hacker or has been hacked before coming into your company. So how do you know this, right? So which means that collaborating with all business stakeholders in defining all requirements that are necessary without necessarily hampering their progress or their speed becomes very important.
I like that, and this is why I think this panel is so very interesting, because obviously it's nice to have 3 people called Stefan and 1 person called Chuck. So that's kind of fun. But on a deeper level, we've got end user perspective, we've got consulting perspective, we've got another type of technical consulting, and then an AG, which Stefan Hager always reminds me is a different entity as well. And so threat intel as the glue that will make tomorrow's SOC is a really interesting thing. But we are sadly out of time. I've let it go on. We are running 10 minutes behind, so I'll just let it go on. But this is very interesting. So please give a round of applause. And I've found the virtual clap icons, so that's great. Please, Stefan Deutscher, Stefan Eigler, Stefan Hager, and Chuck Sajemi, thank you very much for such a great panel. I look forward to seeing you in the audience and seeing you again soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for the great moderation.
Thank you very much. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Perfect. And please keep those questions coming. It's always great. And please keep the hashtag alive, SOC Future. It's doing very well on LinkedIn, a little bit on Twitter, but LinkedIn is doing very well. It's always very good to get that together. Now, I am very, very pleased to welcome to the stage Colonel Ralf Thiele, retired, former Special Projects Director at the German Air Force. Colonel Thiele has very kindly spoken at a number of my events over the years in the defense realm, and he very kindly came to the Physical Managed Security Services Forum in Munich last year, which was really nice. Ralf, nice to see you. A slightly different format this time. How are you doing? I think you're on mute.
So here we are.
Perfect.
You hear me?
Yes. How are you doing? How have you enjoyed the day?
Well, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting discussion. In fact, I will try to pick up a couple of those points that have been made. We will see how that works out.
Perfect. Well, you have the floor. You can maximize your presentation and away you go.
Yeah. So let me see. So it looks good. Now you have my presentation. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So hybrid warfare, future and technologies is what I'm talking about. In principle, I've run a project since December 2018 for the Hybrid Center of Excellence Countering Hybrid Threats in Helsinki. This is an organization that is more or less covered by 27 nations from NATO and EU, and the center also advises the European Commission and of course the NATO as such. And we've been dealing with the issues of what technologies come out there, how are they related to hybrid warfare and to us all, and what kind of awareness should we have, and what kind of technologies should we care about. Here's my agenda. As you can see, in principle, I put Alvin and Heidi Toffler next to it, who have written this book, War and Anti-War, in 1995. And their thesis, the ways in which we create wealth and the ways in which we wage war inextricably linked, is in principle a kind of guiding theme that goes around. In principle, that also shows immediately how much, when we look at hybrid warfare, in principle, you with the SOC, in principle, are involved. So let's look a little bit at that. Hybrid warfare, what we address is integrated use of regular and irregular military and non-military activities below the threshold of war. For political, this includes economical and military purposes, with the aim of imposing own policy or will on opponents. So this appears from our findings to be the standard, more or less, in the future, because it has little risks. So you had already discussed the issue action and counteraction. In principle, hybrid warfare is a way how you can achieve your objectives and can hope not to be detected and or to be punished. So it's an easy way to do it. And so, of course, it makes it a little bit difficult. You just had this hackback discussion, not to respond to these things, because the offender clearly is an advantage. So just being victim, even a smart victim, is a difficult situation to sustain, and we are looking in that how these new disruptive technologies are actually working for both sides, for those who want to protect themselves and those who offend. One thing these hybrid actors actually love are proxies. This has been mentioned already today, and so they act themselves, but they act through other states, they act through non-governmental organizations, they act through criminals, and they also act through terrorists. So the scope is pretty broad, and we all are among the targets. So if you want to deal with these issues, in principle, as a government or as a group of governments, an organization like NATO or EU, you have to implement and use, employ instruments of power, which are on the left side seen, which are diplomatic classically, but also informational, military, economic instruments of power. You have government agencies that are or can be employed. You have non-state actors that are employed. So again, this comes a lot to industry as well, but it also comes to criminals, as mentioned before. And you have the individuals. And in principle, the difficult thing about that, and I think this will affect although the SOCs, as mentioned today already, you have constantly changes of purpose, aims, and means. You have this battlefield in a way two-dimensional, evolving into a multi-domain better space. The military part of it is the smallest part of it. The non-military parts are actually getting more and more important. You have the emphasis on cognitive, non-kinetic, and non-military means. And in fact, when you look down to the bottom of this presentation, the previous standard of AK-47 and dynamite, in principle, is also there, but you move towards a multidimensional systemic capabilities. Drones have been mentioned already, autonomous systems, cyber, 3D printing, all kinds of things that actually come on board and that make your job as, in principle, governmental job of providing security kind of difficult. Now, looking at the actors, in principle, I have predominantly shown here a couple of governmental actors that are known to you. They can perform, in principle, the better, the more proxies they have in your country. I mean, when you look into your country, the question is, are there people of Russian origin in your country? Are there people of Chinese origin in your country, etc., etc.? This makes it easy for governmental actors to apply these people, attack or influence them through social means, use them, employ them through criminal means. So a couple of things come out there, and so that makes it so attractive if you have, well, what should I say, active minorities in countries, in scenes, in regions to employ hybrid action. And what actually is really, really new when you look into that. I mean, I've been for 40 years a soldier in the Bundeswehr, but of course also in NATO and EU assignments. We always had a clear technological dominance. This is kind of gone, at least in several areas. So this is the kind of striking new environment that we have to get used for, where in principle, outmaneuvering becomes the challenge. So you have a capable, opponent using all kinds of technologies, all kinds of means, all kinds of domains, space, cyber, land, air, sea, whatsoever, to act, and very technology gifted and prepared, and even becoming better. And now, how do you provide for continued prosperity and security? Kind of difficult. And then there's the next thing. They don't just do the things you are used to do it. I have here displayed the chess and the Go board. In principle, Europeans, the West, if I put it this way, is used to chess games, so striking games. You hit figures and eliminate them, and then you, in principle, may get on the winner street. When you look at Asia, at China in particular, you have this more space taking games like Go, where you make moves that disable your opponent to move himself. And this is a kind, when you look, in fact, a kind of game, when you look into these domains of today, in fact, that happens. So hijacking airspace, hijacking cyberspace, don't allow the other to move in the space is getting more or less a strategic game. And I've displayed here on the right side, for example, there's a Russian S-500 that allow Russia to dictate more or less Americans and others whether they fly airplanes on missions in Syria or Iraq. We are seeing this kind of in Libya. You have the Chinese with these carrier killers on the right bottom that in principle can allow American fleets to enter the South China Sea, or at least to threaten them to do so. And that such things work with less technology as well has been shown by the Iran. So we have a real challenge, and from my understanding, the real challenge is to keep pace. A very new situation that strikes through to your responsibilities that you have when you protect companies, industry that often also has a kind of global reach. I just show a couple of classical approaches that how actors like Russia, China, Iran are doing. So you have this the Russian approach, attack at the seams, where in principle you have this shift to the integrated use of political, economical, information, and other non-military means related to military violence. And they have shown in Ukraine, Crimea, but they keep on showing it in principle in Eastern and Southeastern Europe, that they are getting better and better in using this mix of instruments. And of course, again, economy, critical infrastructures, media, social media are affected and impacted on, in particular in the neighborhood of elections, as we can see that again. You see this weaponized social media, in principle, is getting a familiar term, and we have to be really worried about this potential that somebody can rapidly escalate conflict methods at his disposal and attacking our societies or attacking economies or parts of the economy, stealing intellectual properties, etc., etc. The Chinese approach, which also in a way has a good relation to what Russians are doing, is disrupt the enemy's cognitive and trust system. And here, again, I would point out that, and warn, so it's not just cyber, it's not just social media. In principle, this is this complex of kinetic and non-kinetic means, including this cognitive domain, where you try to make your opponents insecure in what they're doing. And economy, industry always is a big part of the equation. And from there, this has an important meaning. And when you then even include electronic warfare, which more or less is how to disrupt command and control cycles, your technology, or how to make GPS go wrong, or other things like that. You can tell this is a challenge that is affecting, in principle, all of the society, and particularly business and industry as well. And the better they get and become in using this integrated, orchestrated, interdepartmental, the bigger the challenge becomes, and the better we have to be positioned, not just on the governmental side, but also on the private side, and also in cooperation with each other. And you can see this is all legal, as in media manipulation, economic measures. It's all part, in principle, of the game that we're looking. Now, I just move briefly to the Irans. When you see where they choose their technologies, they don't have this economic power of China. They look for technologies with easy access, low price, easy handling, transportable, easy to hide, and highly effective, suitable for a wide range of employment options. And they share that with their proxies, again, terrorists, criminals, others. Then you have, together with what I just reported on China and Russia, you have quite an interesting menu that affects your work in the SOC of the future, because almost all of these things push through into your areas of responsibility. And this is why it's so important to be educated and competent in dealing with the issues, and also to become actionable. It's kind of amazing. You see that September 2019, September 10, 2019, in the New York Times, this article from an NSA counselor who just struck it on the bottom, this unprecedented scale of technological change that ends up in ceaseless and pervasive attacks against NATO, nation states, business, and individuals. So this is, in fact, a huge scope, driven by the flood of data, which makes me think immediately of those who have most of the data, actually the Amazons and Alibaba, so even more than governments. It's amazing what kind of data they have, and make instrumental to implement their interests and objectives, and we see that ends up then in economical and political power in the hands, in principle, of the private sector. We have this pernicious effect on the very legitimacy and those stability of our governmental and societal structures. And I think this is a perfect description of what we have, and we must not allow that hybrid warfare becomes a kind of comfort zone for the aggressors. Now, just a couple of slides that just show you how interactive these things are. You see this hijacking of ships as an issue. You see the counterattack. So here you see already something's happening of the US at Iran's ability to target tankers by wiping out a critical database. So this gives, along with the next things I'll show you, a kind of perspectives in what direction we are heading. I'm not saying that I wish we would head this way. I just want to point out that we are moving in this direction. Here is another one. This was a mysterious explosion as a space site in Iran. So what we're talking about is critical infrastructure. This has been mentioned today already here a couple of times, and here many things are of interest, in particular energy, I think, is a top point, and this leads me just to the next slide, where you had these drone attacks on Saudi Arabia, again, that took out and wiped out for some time the production capabilities of Saudi Arabia with drones. Drones have been mentioned as well as something that comes along in a way as a permanent company of us today already, and much more much more in the future. Then here again, a partner you not necessarily expect. Here again, a report from the New York Times about Green Berets and SEALs practicing support missions for local resistance forces in Eastern Europe. What I want to say is the protection of critical infrastructure, like aggression against critical infrastructure, will likely also involve special forces. So when those of you who have the job of protecting critical infrastructures will find a company that they have not been used to in the future, likely in the context of hybrid warfare, because all of that happens in parentheses in peace, not in war. Technologies. We found in our research 19 technologies. Of course, I cannot go in details through all of them, but that we found particularly important driving our environment, means your environment as well, in the next, well, today and in the next future. 5G, I have those of particular importance marked in yellow. 5G is among those, and here, in principle, some of this present discussion is pretty odd about involving Huawei. It may serve the income of companies employing Huawei, but in principle, the first thing on the cyber side you can do is, in fact, use infected hardware for your backbone. 5G is enormous. It brings edge computing, in principle, down decentralized to the power to the edge, to the actor, to the industry, to anybody, and having Huawei provided is a kind of interesting approach. So it's an attractive target for sabotage, for hacking, denial of service, etc. So all things, in principle, many of you are involved in. You have this additive manufacturing thing that offers a rapid, flexible production capability for criminals, terrorists, and other hybrid actors. You have artificial intelligence. I will say later a couple of words, but let me point out clearly, I heard a couple of question marks on that, but you see artificial intelligence from our research, this is not something fancy for the future. This is a workhorse of today. So considering to imply features, big data, machine learning, algorithms, and is a nice thing to do when the others are already in the race. So everybody who thinks too long about that will find himself somewhere in the rear end of the party. This is a workhorse. Autonomous systems, we had that broad employment spectrum. You had that at the Olympic Games, 1,200 drones in the air and doing whatever was directed, in this case in an art composition, but you can use them, of course, for all kinds of things. They are there, they are applicable, they work, they are part of our life. Biotechnology, we don't look too much into this game, but actually it's enormous what's out there. Drugs that help you focus, things that make you stronger, all kinds of things that are the cloud computing part of our reality, communications, self-healing networks. This is in a way a nice target for hybrid actors that want to put their will in action. It's in fact a must-have for advanced industry and business. Cyber, in principle, 70% of the hybrid game is somehow cyber related. And again, it's the attacker has the advantage. As military, the former military that comes out of the land of Clausewitz, I always have to remind people that discuss the benefits of offense versus defense. In principle, you really have to look, are you talking about a strategic level? So does a country want to hijack another country? Or is it more on the tactical level, means do we have our police guy to have a weapon when the criminals have weapons? Do we want on the tactical side somebody to be able to use an offensive weapon like a pistol in a security situation? So there are shades of gray that you have to look at, and of course you have to work the issues. Directed energy is coming more and more because it's very difficult to deal with drones. So this is the thing that comes on. Distributed ledger technology, many know this as blockchain, important in the world of fake news and fake information, to make sure that my truth remains my truth. Extended reality is something that enormously improves situational awareness. In principle, what I was particularly fascinated of was these digital twins. Means attackers, criminals as governments tend to model their targets. As I do so, in principle, you, as you protect yourself, should also protect and model your environment, because you can, by doing so, be much better prepared. What are your vulnerabilities, attack vectors that likely would be targeted? And this kind of digital twins is becoming a kind of standard of the future, so that if a ship is on the high sea and you have to do repair, you can look at home with a constructor what needs to be done, and then advise somebody on board what he just needs to do. So this is a big thing as well. Hypersonics, well, I don't want to get into that, but it's amazing. Mach 27 speed, we have no clue at the moment how to defend against this. And in fact, the Russians have, since end of last year, the first hypersonic weapon systems running. The Chinese are this year on the scene, and USA hopes to have it in 5 years. So you can see really the race is pretty on. Internet of Things as a thing that will be applied by hybrid actors. Microelectronics, where China aims to have 70% of the global production in China, which means you will hardly find a baby phone without Chinese hardware, which again shows you what kind of cyber problem you probably will run into even in your operation centers of the future. Nanomaterials, nuclear modernization, I leave that out. Quantum is a disruptor. I think many of you don't take that serious at present yet, but some actors do already, because it appears that all of these top secrets you have and protect via crypto may be read through quantum computers in the next 5 years. So a couple of opponents and competitors collect already your crypted secrets, because they hope to be able to read it in clear text in the near future. So kind of interesting thing. And this, for example, applies to 5G. When you implement 5G, you better do that already quantum safe to be sure that you don't have to do your job again in a couple of years. Space coming up, we have something like 2,000 satellites, a little bit more, flying around, and we may have 100,000 in a few years. So you can tell that's obviously something dramatically is happening in space with regard to our day-to-day business. IoT is an issue. Internet, in principle, is an issue. A lot of ISR, so intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance from space, a lot of things. And then sensors that I have not mentioned too much, all kinds of sensors connected that you can use in principle to find out what's going on in reality, in physical things, and also in virtual environments. So in a nutshell, we are looking into a digital environment where data, in principle, are the new oil, where the networks are the oil rigs, And the real interest is now, and this has been mentioned as well, was an example of OSINT, open source intelligence, but it's not just open source intelligence, it's signal intelligence, electronic intelligence. You have all kinds of intelligence that you have out there, and where you collect the data and then evaluate the data and make them actionable. And I think much of this is coming to you as a challenge to you, and we have to look out how to work on that. So the issue of situational awareness has been mentioned. You need data for that. You have to deal with data. It has to look into many domains, and here data fusion, kind of real-time analytics, visualization, all these things in principle coming together and getting important. AI will be a key actor in this environment, helping to identify relevant objects, persons, and commodities. You can monitor commodity flows and support investigations for all kinds of things. And of course, AI will also help you to sort out with all the information that's out there in the media and social media. And this is getting more and more interesting as commerce is looking for micro targeting. You can use that, of course, also for criminal and terroristic and other events, means really sort out people and even, get rid of persons then through drones as a final act, or get rid of physical infrastructure through drones as a kind of final step. So this is quite an issue. You have to prepare decision makers for that, because they are not well prepared. That's why we think that serious gaming is getting and becoming a key issue. We need to be able to take the right decisions, to have the right and thorough understanding. And this again, by modeling and simulation, is a kind of issue that we have to look about. But this has been, in a way, also mentioned already through others. This is, in a nutshell, our future. So don't fight digitalization. Actually, we are already moving towards a post-digital era. So it's get your act together. AI, I put it as a donkey. You can also put it as a workhorse. So this is nothing to think too much about whether you should apply it. The real question is, how do you develop expertise? How do you take the best benefit for your purposes out of it? Because it doesn't come by itself, and it will be driven by algorithms. And in a way, it's a specialist. I mean, those who worry that AI takes over from us humans, this is for the foreseeable future not the real point, because it helps you just getting on with masses of data, or with become more speedy in real-time environments, but it doesn't take over complexity. This is where we, in fact, still need the people and decision makers and evaluators on board. You have autonomous systems coming up there. They are your teammates as virtual assistants. So one person can have plenty of virtual assistants that help you with your job. It comes in terms of drones or robots or whatsoever. But this is another thing that really drives it. Extended reality, I mentioned already. Digital twins, this is a thing, and the disruptor quantum computing with a perspective of being operational or becoming operational in the next 10 years. So we have to deal with this technology race. It works cross-domain, and it allows for the virtualization of functions, and it combines, which makes it very difficult for us, for all of us, it combines virtual worlds and reality. It links our private life with our professional lives, and we need, I think, good ideas what that then means in practice. And by that, I'm done.
Perfect. Well, thank you. This is a big tour de force. I like the donkey analogy, and it's you know, people go to so many conferences on cybersecurity or security, and they just get the same types of topics about MDR, CASB, or something like that. And actually, look at what's coming down the pipeline from the military it's what's next. So just as it was great to include you at the MSS Munich last year, so it's brilliant to include you here. I really like that, and you even brought in Clausewitz, which is nice. You didn't expect Clausewitz from the SOC of the Future conference, did you? But fantastic. Well, we are now out of time. I'll start off a wonderful round of applause. Please give Colonel Ralph Thiele a round of applause. It's been a pleasure to welcome you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you very soon.
See you.
Perfect. Well, as before, we're running 10 minutes behind, but we will find a way of making it up. And I am going to welcome to the stage our next panelist, because we're going from different formats. I said before, we got some on PowerPoint, we got some panels, some videos, some fireside chats. So what I'd like to do now is invite up to the stage Sanjana Somsagar, commercial SOC analyst at BT, and also Yannick Schumann, head of IT security at Trade Republic, for a very interesting conversation. I'm just making sure that I've got everybody. I can. Yannick, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Ah, you're on the audio. Okay, I see. All right. And is there any way to start the video, or are you going to be on audio? Ah, there you are.
There you go.
Perfect. No, it's lovely to see you. Obviously, you don't get a military presentation smack bang in the middle of one of our security conferences every day. So hopefully that's a bit of a breath of fresh air. And talking about breaths of fresh air, in fact, what we're trying to get to the bottom of is we're talking about this SOC of the future. Well, who's going to operate this SOC of the future? And so we've got some very nice questions on the SOC analyst of the future. So we're going to go from where we are now to where we're going to be. Sanjana, why don't I start with you? Okay. Who is the analyst today?
So first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And yes, so coming into the question, who is the SOC analyst today? So before I say about today, let me just touch upon a little bit about the past. So initially, when we started off with the SOCs, it was more about just controlling and monitoring, looking for some issues or some suspicious incidents, and then reporting it to the incident response team. But now, when it comes to the SOC, we have a large team and we have different tiers in that. And everybody is given specific roles. Like starting from L1 analyst, it's just more about monitoring and looking for the alerts, seeing if they are false positives or not, and then looking into the playbooks and working on the alerts. So if there is an issue, it is being given to the L2 and then to L3 and so on. So that is how it is going on today. And in the past, we never had any terms to actually filter out low fidelity alerts, but now we can actually do that. So that is a little bit of advancement. So that's the SOC now. But the SOC in future should be something which is more in moving into automation or threat intelligence, where there is a reduction on the workload of the L1 analysts to work on the alerts, but at the same time spend more time in analyzing them and going into the root cause. So that is where we should be moving forward to.
I like it. So that kind of combines a couple of topics there. So Yannick, I mean, who is the analyst for you, and is automation the key to helping this apparently, poor analyst? The popular media says, well, the analyst is doing lots of repetitive tasks, so we need to make something much more meaty for them to do. Does that narrative resonate with you, Yannick?
Yeah, so I guess there are different approaches in different companies we see, especially depending on the size of the companies and in which state the security operation centers are. Analysts, in a general term spoken, are moreover like not really a competitive advantage for a company. So far, so seen, and I would like to extend this idea later on. But nowadays, I guess there's a high fluctuation rate sometimes in analysts, and this is because of the value how analysts are seen nowadays in the company. And I guess there's a huge possible step forward to get even the analyst nowadays into not only being an analyst in the future, but automate what they do right now as far as possible and try to make their work more meaningful for the company. And I guess we will come later to it, but a risk-based approach, for example, and giving them more values in the chain of how the company works will, of course, give the business and business advantage.
So a business advantage, and then the idea is, of course, implement some automation for this future SOC, and you'll get them working on more meaningful things. So Sanjana, is one of those more meaningful tasks improvisation of the rules that they're working on?
Yes, definitely that is one of the aspects, because first step is to do the threat hunting job. So you are actually looking into what are the new attacks that are coming in. So then you know what rules you need to actually modify in order to capture them or to protect your organization from those attacks. So rule modification is one of the aspects that the analyst can actually develop towards. So when you have good rules set, so then the false positives would also reduce, and you would have more of meaningful alerts to work on. So that makes much more sense. And also, we can also work towards the threat intelligence part of it. So these are some of the things that I think analysts should start working on in future, and not just look into monitoring and working on the alerts as such.
Okay, well, I like that. So that's something more meaty. Yannick, would that be possible in every organization, or is there another risk-based approach to being a SOC analyst that's more meaty?
Yeah, so we know pretty good which threats we have out there, but every company need to identify their risk they are facing right now. And if they don't come up with a proper evaluation of that, there might be misleading work conditions for the analyst in the security operations center. So I guess what is important for being a leader in a company in these terms, making it an end-to-end chain to understand what risks we have out there and how to integrate the feedback the analysts are providing us within the company, how to integrate those improvements within our business. So I guess this is a competitive advantage when we look through this process, how we can assure not being always making like a fire going out, but making it more protected in the future wise.
Yeah, jumping on lots of different fires and so on is really tough. But now, I said in the very, very beginning, I don't know if you're there, I don't like to say Bildungslöcher, because in German it doesn't quite work, and there's connotations of, well, you shouldn't have had any Bildungslöcher in the first place. But evidently things change and skills need to be developed. So Sanjana, what skills does the analyst need to operate the SOC of the future, or even the virtual SOC?
Okay. So some of the skills that I would say is first is the curiosity and the interest to actually learn more and look into things in detail. So that is one of the main skills that an analyst requires. So once that is there and you are looking into the details, so instead of just following the playbooks and just looking whether this alert needs to be performed, is it malicious or not, you can actually go into an in-depth analysis, look at what is the root cause. Even you can just take some time and do that. So that will give you a lot of information about what has actually occurred. And you will end up reading about it, and you will learn. You can also start interacting with the mitigation teams, so that you can have some interaction with them. See, okay, this is the alert that happened. So how do you mitigate it? So you can work with them in partnership. Or as such, in cybersecurity, the mitigation team, the SOC, all of them have to work together actually. So this is a good platform for them, so they can actually acquire that skills. And knowing a little bit about the mitigation and the offensive side of security will definitely help analysts who are working in the SOC, because that will give them a better perspective. So these are some of the skills that I would say, like, go think out of the box, do a little bit more than what is being given, so that even the analysts don't get bored doing the same mundane task, because after some time some of the alerts are very repetitive, so it gets boring. So this could be something that they can focus on.
That's nice, and then at least the company benefits as a whole.
Yes.
Yeah, Yannick, what about for you? Is it a question of skills gaps, or simply the tech has changed, so we need to learn more? More.
So, first of all, I totally agree to Sanjana. It is really important to give these people meaningful work, not only to give them like, do this whole day and you're done, and the next day you will do just the same. So I guess it's not so much important to talk about skills, because we need, of course, build up people skills in our company. We cannot see it from a perspective that they will get highly skilled and get into our company and we can benefit out of them and they will stay in the same level. We can take like new joiners from graduation school and build them up as analysts pretty well, as long as we have internal capabilities for that. And this is, I guess, a perspective every businessman should, or every leader should have, that educating the people and giving them meaningful work will always embrace the people to do a better work and be more efficient in their job. So I guess the feedback the analyst can give to the business is so meaningful and so important for the business itself, that it should be, for the management, really important to gather this from the analyst and not only the outcome of how many tickets were solved.
Yeah, exactly, because that ticket question comes up when we deal with our Managed Security Services Forum event. And, we're going to have a panel later about the MSP versus the MSS. And, sometimes someone buys the basic package and then they come in the morning and say, I've lost $1 million. And they're like, yeah, we sent you the ticker tape message at 2 a.m. in a text message.
True.
So Sanjana, these skills, getting a bit more interested, how are we going to get the SOC analyst looking into mitigation and remediation, especially as a third party? Isn't that a bit difficult? Or is there a place for that?
So I think this would link to the point that we discussed about automation. So when there is automation that is coming into picture, actually there are chances that the L1 analyst role can get vanished or partially vanished, because there are many organizations that are moving towards automation, and so is my organization. So we have kind of developed a tool which would actually do the analysis when an alert is being triggered, and it will give us the suggestions of whether it is a suspicious or not. So when we are using tools like that, now we are in the trial phase. So we still keep our analysts doing the analysis, and then we compare if the tool is actually working in accordance, probably when it is well developed and we can implement it. So then most of the organizations are going to move towards that. So the L1 part might get vanished, and it will be more of L2. So in L2, you are more into the analysis part. So so an alert has occurred, and the tool is giving you some sort of information that it is suspicious. So then the next step is to actually go into that, see what has occurred, what is the root cause, which all points have been touched, and what else could have it triggered, or what can be done. So that is when you are going to go into the mitigation part of it. How can we avoid this in future? So that is also when you're doing as a third party, you're giving a better service to your customers as well, because you're giving something extra. You're giving them some points on how to mitigate, and they would be definitely interested in that. Not necessarily every organization should have an offensive and a defensive team, right? So that is something that we can do. We can bridge it together, or start working together. So that's when these points would actually come into picture.
I like it, because as you said, you can advise, and if that was me and my day job, that would suddenly make the role quite appealing, or at least more engaging. And advising them is totally different than hitting back, which is not allowed in many places, and it's totally different from actually taking it and doing the remediation. What about you, Yannick? I know you've been on both the inside and the third-party side of the house. Is that the future? That value-added advisor role to the analyst of the future?
Yeah, I guess this is an interesting question, because we have several layers of interest here. So talking about advice and how external maybe get into the internal perspective of a company, I guess the key contribution goes always about the top management, because the top management itself knows best what is good for the company and what not, and therefore always have like the power to direct the knowledge which will come into it. So I guess automatization is really important in this perspective. And when you look at it as like a bank account where you put like every day $10 on it, the interest rate will be so much, then in maybe 10 years, always investing it, there will be so much interest in place that your business at all is much more valued, and even the knowledge you gained so far. So I guess it's not about making projects and getting advisory from external, which need to be hired, and it takes 1 month until they really understand what you are doing in your business. It is important to do step-by-step approach by looking what can we actually do today better to make it more, even tomorrow, a better place to work, not only to work at, but that our company is better protected in a security operations wise. Right? So,
I mean, would you go to work to do that role? I think that actually sounds much better than today's analyst, which may or may not. I mean, it's different companies, but that sounds like a good role to have.
Yeah, so I guess it's about scalability. Right now, I'm working in a really small company with 200 employees. I can do it by myself, and I will work it up with some colleagues. But looking at a really big company, which I was previously in, it is really difficult to find the right people in the right place with the right skills, right? So you really need to manage this perspective, and being successful, meaning always to spend some resources into it. And again, I just want to not stress it, but to mention it again, to see the analyst as a feedback, and feedback is the most valuable you can get within a company, as long as it is straightforward. Then you can protect even your business pretty far better than you don't. So yes, I really like Sanya's approach of getting it.
Well, this is good. And, you know, obviously, if you're a business leader, sometimes you think to yourself, why do I care about the analyst? I care about results, which, yeah, fine. But if you don't understand what they're doing, they might end up with some funny results. People often do that with marketing, and they get very odd results out. But that's another story. So, Sanjana, who is the analyst of the future in the SOC, assuming we still have SOCs?
Okay, so assuming we still have SOCs, yes, we will. If not the actual SOC within a room, but virtual SOC could be future. So in that case, analysts would definitely have to do everything virtually. That is the handovers, the ticketing, and we have multiple tools that are into picture. So handling everything together, but at the same time, maintaining it more like actual SOC. Like for now, during the pandemic situation, for the past 7 months, we are all been doing a kind of a virtual SOC where we are just interacting with our colleagues virtually, but at the same time, we are doing everything just like how it was previously, the handing over the procedures, policies, following everything, documenting them. So the analysts of the future will have to start looking into these aspects as well. So they are bringing in a new aspect of procedures and documents that they need to start preparing. And so that is also something that the analyst will have to do. And the next step, like I said about the automating threat intelligence, threat hunting, these kind of things are something that the SOC analysts will have to start building up their skills on, looking into the future. And yes, so I think the SOCs will still be there, but probably in a definitely in a different way, where the analysts are comfortable and they are also happy, you know, that they're doing something for the organization by protecting them. Usually when analysts join the organization, they come up with that sort of excitement that they are actually going to protect the organization. But after some time, because of the mundane tasks that they keep doing, they kind of get bored. And that's why you can see that in many organizations, the analysts keep changing. You know, you have to keep finding new ones every now and then, because you need to keep them motivated and give them something more that they feel satisfied that that they're doing something really good, and at the same time they are getting exposed to new technologies or new tools So that is something that I would say the SOC analysts of the future would be.
That's good, and thanks for the honesty. You know, it's important to think about that. Obviously, on the physical side, a lot of the physical analysts are basically in trouble because staring at a computer monitor for CCTV is not funny, and it's not current either. You know, it's an old thing. So I'll tell you what, and I'll leave it with you, Yannick. Who is the analyst of the future for you?
Yes, so I guess he will be a big part of the security chain, and to be so, he needs to understand what assets we need to protect and which risks we have out there, and why his role is so much important. So I guess he needs a good business understanding, and so far he will embrace that he makes every day a good job about how to protect those assets against all the frauds and legal penalties maybe out there for us, so that he can make every day good decisions how to come up with feedback, and how we can integrate this feedback will be, of course, then on us. So I guess he will a broad skilled technical guy, like in T-shape, with really good communication skills and understanding of the broad business, and also having a shape understanding of what he is doing, trying to understand what security issues are lying there within an incident and how to get it solved.
Great. It sounds like a much more attractive role than people may have had in the past. So that's good news. But yeah, now we are out of time. This is really good. Sanjana and Yannick, thank you very much. Please give our wonderful panelists a round of applause. I found the virtual clap icon. One day we'll get the noise of clapping or something going on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. It's great to see you, and I'll see you in the audience. Perfect. Well, no, this is very interesting. So far we've gone on a very big gambit, going all the way to the world of